public comments. If you'd like to make comments, there's cards at the back. Please fill those out and hand them to the clerk, and we'll discuss those as we go through the agenda. Item number 4 is an action item. It is approval of August 3rd, 2021 meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments or changes?
I move approval.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Good morning, staff. Everybody here. Hi there. Wow, it's good to see you.
Well, thank you. Good to see you too.
Yeah, even with the mask on. I don't get to see the pretty smile, though, but that's all right. We'll go to item B. You go ahead and Jennifer, if you want to read that, please.
Sure. Recommendations for WSA 21-011, a water service agreement application submitted by Kimley Horn of Prescott on behalf of Owner Shipping Yard LLC, Prescott, located at parcel numbers 113-15-059 and 113-15-061 in Township 14 North, Range 2 West, Section 33, Southeast 1/4, Southwest 1/4, Northeast 1/4.
Okay, who's going to present this today? Okay.
I will, sir.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Kay Sido, Water Resource Project Manager for the city. Let me just scroll down. Why isn't this showing? Did I not pull it up enough?
Just drag it all the way up.
These pretty little pictures here.
You need help?
They look good.
You got it.
Oh, this is for the... Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to run it off.
Yeah, the food truck court.
Way up high here. Oh,
Right across from City Hall.
We'll probably be using it.
Yeah.
The new City Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right. Oh, okay.
Days a week, we could have one of these trucks drive over and.
Now, okay.
I think that would be a magnificent idea.
Prime rib truck.
Yeah.
We have 2 water service agreement applications on the agenda for today. And the first...
Can you use your mic, please? Thanks.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'll start over then. This is Kay Sido, Water Resource Project Manager for the City of Prescott. And we do have 2 water service applications to consider today. So I'd like to scroll down to the site plan first, just to show you where we're going to be. And we're at these 2 parcels here. And this is going to be a future food truck park. It's at the northwest corner of Montezuma and Willis Streets. This is going to be an excellent location for these. And I don't know if I can make this turn to landscape or not. Let's see.
Go to view.
Okay, view. Where's the, oh, rotate view, there we go. Clockwise. There we go. So this dot right here is where those 2 parcels are at Montezuma and Willis. And this is in the floodway. And this is Granite Creek running here, flowing north near its confluence with Miller Creek. So this is in the floodway, and a little bit of it is in the AE zone, what we call the 100-year floodplain zone. So these trucks will be movable. Let's see if I can.
What's the orange
That's the dot. That's the dot.
on the periphery, on the edges?
Well, I can't read it from here. I should know, but I think that's outside the floodplain.
Okay.
So now I want to scroll back up here. And it's not wanting to scroll for me. know. Oh, okay. Oh, it's stuck.
0.2%
Close out of that.
annual chance
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
Well,
see it
I
here now
I
on-
can speak to it. If you all have the agenda packet, you've seen the application and
Right.
such. So this application for 7 food trucks was applied by Kimley Horn and Prescott for Shipping Yard LLC, also in Prescott. Oh, but I do want to show the site plan. So maybe, do we need to shut down and start again, or? I can't tell where the packet is. Yay, someone to my rescue here. Oh, it worked. Okay. Now it works.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
just weren't on the window anymore.
Okay. All right. Thank you. But now it's not showing on the screen again. Pull it up.
On the top white where it says Adobe Reader. Where is the header? I don't know.
Hope New City Hall has something better than this.
Anything's better than this.
Stuck.
Do you see-
Plan your meeting for how long?
This is just a test.
He left too soon. Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. You rotate counterclockwise. There we go. Now, am I still in the minutes? Have I come down?
The old-fashioned way.
There we go. The site plan. So I wanted you to see the site plan because I want you to see where the 7 trucks will be stationed here at these rectangular spots here. And there is water and sewer running north to south down Montezuma and also north to south in this alleyway behind here. And there's also water. So each one of these 7 trucks, food trucks, will have its own hose bib for water and its own sewer to discharge when, but they've made an agreement with the Yavapai County Health Department that they will collect it in a big container, and then when it's when it's full, hopefully after the lunch rush or the breakfast lunch, they'll empty it then. So they're supposed to empty it once or twice a day. And this is the location of the grease trap right here. So each one of these trucks will have its own water hose bib and sewer hookup. A water demand estimate was provided by Kimley Horn, and they estimate with the 7 food trucks with 2 employees a day serving about 40 meals a day, that the water demand estimate will be 2.6 acre feet per year. Does anybody have any questions about this application?
Do they have restroom facilities on site?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that. There are picnic tables here. This will be a nice seating area, and they are removable. And there will be 2 porta potties, and they are ADA compliant. And these can also be moved. Everything can be moved out of harm's way in the case of a flood.
That water demand analysis, is that based upon 7 days a week, 365 a year?
Yes, I believe they did go ahead and do the whole 7 days times 365, yes.
Substantially less
Right.
usage.
Yeah.
for practical purposes.
Okay, any other questions? I hear a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the water services agreement for parcel number 113-15-059 and 113-15-061. Do I hear a second?
Second. No, wait, I
Oh, that's right.
motioned it.
And I seconded.
You second.
Oh, yeah.
Anything left for me to do?
Yeah,
Yeah,
vote.
say,
All-
what do
all-
you guys think you're doing?
Yeah, that's right.
Or
All
any
in
further
favor?
comments?
Aye.
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 Passes unanimously.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just to let everybody know and to clarify, we are not approving the water for this. We're approving sending it to council so that they can approve the water for this.
Correct.
Yes, sir. hmm
Okay, the
I
next
just
item.
wanted to make a
what-
comment, Chairman. I
Go ahead.
think this is a pretty good use of this area
Mhm.
because of its potential impact on flooding and being able to have these movable restaurants, so to speak, makes it a good use of the area.
I guess I have a question now that you brought that up. What kind of hard service are they going to have to put in? Are they paving it? Are they leaving it, dirt? Who's going to maintain the weeds? I mean, those types of things.
I can't answer that for you. I thought it had already been paved. Am I mistaken on that?
It is not paved.
It hasn't been paved?
No,
Okay.
it's dirt.
Okay. Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's dirt, if
It
it's
would
going to
probably
be
be
paved.
a good question to have before
Or
council sees it, because maybe George has the answer. Because it's a health safety issue not having it paved of some kind.
At the pre-application review for this particular item, prior to it getting this far in the process, the discussion of some kind of hard surface that meets the city's requirements, that can be compacted DG, it can be brick pavers, it can be asphalt or concrete.
Okay.
The more impervious surface you put down, the more runoff you have, and you're already in the floodway, so less impervious surface is probably better. We expect they'll probably use compacted DG for the most part. It does have to meet our fire department requirements for weight capacity.
Okay.
So it'll be really compacted DG.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Okay, let's go on, Jennifer, to the next item, please.
Recommendation for Water Service Agreement 21-012, a water service agreement application submitted by Michael Lafferty on behalf of property owner Dells View Apartments and city contract number 2017-009, Amendment 3, an amendment to city contract number 2017-009. Excuse me.
Okay.
Location 2051 Willow Lake, LLC. Assessor's parcel number 106-13-031H, comprising 7.47 acres in T14N R2W, Section 13, Southwest 1/4, Northwest 1/4, Southwest 1/4.
The second water service area agreement, 21-012, is for Dells View Apartments. It's on Willow Lakes Road, and its owner is Willow Lakes, and it was filed by applicant Mike Lafferty. There are 3 contracts associated with this particular subdivision. Contract number 1 was to allow 99 lots, and that was in 2017-009. That contract was written. And a few months later, they came in for an amendment to the contract to allow service to 101 units, so a total of 200 units. Amendment number 2 to the contract, it gave them a time extension of 1 year to obtain their building permits, but they were not able to do this in time. So here now in August of 2021, we've made a 3rd amendment to the original contract, and this one allows them to extend their time frame to obtain the building permits, but we do expect this to happen within the next few months. And also they wanted to split the lots, and we did allow that because it was still within the original boundaries. So there's one lot for buildings 1 and 2. There's another lot for buildings 3 and 4, and a 3rd lot split down at the lower corner there. which we're not sure exactly what Mr. Lafferty wants to do with that yet. I don't think he's made a final decision. The Third Amendment also allows, in addition to the lot splitting and the time extension, for their water demand. So the water demand is estimated at 26.24 acre feet per year, and this includes 1.4 acre feet for a clubhouse and 0.84 acre feet for landscaping. Buildings 3 and 4 have been constructed. They have 104 units in them. And the next round, buildings 1 and 2, will be constructed with 96 units. And again, we're talking a total of 200 units, so they have not exceeded their original contract amount. Does anyone have any questions about this application?
Anybody have a comment?
I'm a little confused about the lot splitting situation here. What's the justification for that?
Well, yeah, okay.
Good morning, Gwen Rowich, Public Works. In speaking with the applicant, it's a condition of financing that the Phase 2 not be connected to Phase 1, but other than that, there's no reason for the lot split. It was originally a condition of the original contract,
Right.
For the water allocation, and that is standard language that we used in water service agreements for quite a number of years, from 2010 till the current policy, in order to discourage additional water requests as a result of lot splitting. That's not the case in this particular instance. It's merely a function of the financing.
Okay. Any other questions?
So he does have remaining property there that potentially could be developed to some extent?
He does have a third lot. He's not requesting water for the third lot. That would be something in the future where he would have to come in and request water. On the third lot, which is located at the most southern portion of the project. Can you point to that, Kay?
Yes,
yeah,
it's
that's
right
the
in
third
here.
lot
It's
right
his
there.
Third lot.
So is that adjacent to the basis school property?
I believe that it is. Does anyone? Yeah, I believe that it is. George said yes. Yes, it is.
And it doesn't have any vehicle access there?
No, sir.
Chairman Blair, we have Michael Lafferty with his hand raised. I'm going to go allow him to talk.
Go right ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Lafferty.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
How are you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen?
We're good.
Just to add some detail to the request, we have buildings 3, 4, 3 clubhouse and 4, which is 20, 55, 57, and 59 address-wise built. And we are getting ready to build 2051 and 2053, which are buildings 1 and 2. On that request, we are I'm refinancing the building 3, clubhouse, and 4. And so in order to construct 1 and 2, I need to separate the lots to give the lender first position on 2051 and 2053, buildings 1 and 2.
Makes sense.
And so this is a mechanism of financing, not of water need. The water originally requested is still the water requested. I understand that we had 0.25 acre feet, and now we're going to be able to reduce it to 0.12, which is an advantage to your water, your local water. And so the whole subject is a subject of financing Phase 2. And if I haven't said it once, I've probably said it a dozen times, that financing is very difficult in a tertiary market. And so the lender is demanding that they have first position on buildings 1 and 2, which is address 2051 and 2053. That might sound very confusing. So we did a lot split, and the third lot is not requesting any water or sewer services at this time at all. We're sticking to the original agreement of 200 units. We're going to build 200 units. We're going to commence construction on the 96. We've built 104, which we're about TCO'd on the clubhouse and building 3. We'll start construction on building 1 and building 2, and let's just call it by November 1st. And we need this revised water agreement in order to achieve financing for phase 1, which is a takeout loan and a perm, and buildings 1 and 2, we need to achieve a loan for construction. That's what this whole matter is about, and I've probably confused you, so please ask me any questions of clarification.
I think you've clarified it more than confused us. I think
having that primary lender position makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, seconds and primaries before is something I'm somewhat familiar with. I did have one other question about the 1 acre feet for the clubhouse.
Go ahead.
That seems a significant amount for simply a clubhouse. Can you describe what the need for the water in the clubhouse is?
If I may interject, it's 1.4 acre feet for the
Right.
clubhouse, not
So that's,
1.8.
50% more than they're going to need for irrigation.
Well, we have our low water use landscaping requirements.
Well, I don't think they're landscaping the clubhouse.
No,
So
I'm just
my
saying
question
it's
is about the clubhouse.
okay.
Do you have an answer?
Can I interject one thing here? The clubhouse, we have 6 water meters and 4 for the buildings, 1 for the clubhouse, which includes the pool,
Oh,
and the 5th one is for irrigation. So we've paid for 5 water permits in your permitting applications.
we didn't understand that the pool was in the clubhouse, so thank you for your clarification.
yeah,
The pool is included in the clubhouse, and that's how we control operating expenses. To understand, the clubhouse uses little to none water, but the pool will definitely use water.
Mm-hmm.
And we've taken all measures to secure the water from burn off with covering the pool at night. So the pool's a big feature, and we'll mitigate any overusage of water possible.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that's a simple question, simple answer. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody else with their hand up?
No, Chairman.
We're good. Everybody okay to send it on to council? Hear a motion?
So moved.
Is second? Okay, a motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that will go on to council. Do you have a date when this is going to go to council? Both these?
I was hoping on the 24th or 28th of September for
Okay.
council for both of these.
That's just so people in the public know if they have any further comments, when they can make their comments known. September 28th. Okay. Let's go on to the next agenda item, which will be discussion items. And the first one is going to be on infrastructure topic, pumping versus recharge. Leslie, I'm sure that is yours.
Sir,
You go to bed at night thinking about that, I'm sure.
I do. It's my turn to play with this document. Okay, good morning, subcommittee members. Leslie Grazer, Public Works. This is-
Can you try and speak up a little more?
I absolutely can.
You,
I know. I'm a mellow fellow kind of person, so.
you got your
Um,
lessons from Councilman Good, so
Oh, I think, yeah, well, it's hard to say. I think it's a family thing. But, okay, so this item is your pumping versus recharge. You've seen this plenty of times, so I don't think I need to describe it too much. This meeting has also your agenda or your August data in it as well. So the second paragraph contains the preliminary total pumped for calendar year 2021 as 4,916 acre feet, and the preliminary total delivered to, to the recharge facility until August 31st is 2,142. Your typical charts in here, as you've seen every month. You have July as well as August, so these two are new since your last meeting. I think you've been able to read through those, so if you have any questions, let me know on that chart, but once again, very familiar, I think. It's always interesting to see how the recharge breaks down, so it's important to remember that this is water that's delivered to the facility and not what we claim to say makes it underground. So you always have to remember how your data is compiled. But to break down the recharge, this 2,442 acre feet, 1,608 roughly was reclaimed supplies, while 533 was surface water. This is another chart that you've asked for about percentages. And so July and August are your two new figures there. And then your overall average is at 49%. So
Are we moving water off those reservoirs right now?
Are we?
And the second bar question to that, Craig, would be if we're spilling, SRP spilling early, we get to start recharging early. But what is that window that we can actually recharge?
Okay. Good morning, committee members. Craig Dosseth, Public Works. So to your question, yes, we are delivering water to the recharge facility currently from Watson Lake. We've been releasing for about 2 weeks now from that. So we got up high enough so that that we were able to do that. Right now we're running. Last week was going about 5 million gallons a day. We're delivered from that that resource. Then in regards to the time frame, the normal time frame by the court appointed. It's not a decision order. There you go. The judgment allows us from normal release is from April 1st to November 30th, unless the Verde chain of lakes fills and SRP is releasing water at the Granite Reef Dam. Then that releases that restriction by the court.
How is their chain? Is their chain fairly full?
No.
Or is it way down still?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Monsoons have been very good to us right here locally in order to get Watson up and Willow a little bit. But as far as the overall chain, it was very low, and the monsoons have helped some, but ultimately it's normally the snowpack is what has the ability to fill those reservoirs to allow SRP to actually release.
And while you're moving this from Watson to the recharge facility, how much do you anticipate taking off there right now?
We'll take it down. We set a conservation level of about 7.5 feet below spill that we would stop at in order to not draw the lake down too low. Then we'll kind of see how it plays out this fall and or this winter with runoff.
So when you say you're going to do it at that level, how many acre feet of water would you put on that number?
That I can't say right off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and check the records.
Okay, I'm just curious. When you start talking about how much we've taken out and how much we're putting back, I was just curious about the release from that structure. We know how many gallons you're putting in, but what does that mean in acre feet?
Yeah, how many acre feet can we get then for not fiscal year, for calendar year 21?
Right.
I'd have to go back and check the records to see what the volume would be in the reservoir, and we can let you know that at the next meeting if
I
that's all right.
appreciate it.
So, Craig, you said 5 million gallons
A day.
a day.
Yes.
So that works out to about 15.3 acre feet a day
Yes.
that you're releasing.
Yep. And that's just on the surface water side.
Yes.
Then we have the effluent as well.
Okay, super. It's nice to get the water.
Yes, it is. It was a good monsoon.
Any questions, Phil?
Yeah, we might be able to catch up, I think. Effluent deliveries look like we're way up over 2020. Surface water way down, but at least the last month was way up.
Yeah.
So let's hope that continues. And then water pumped, 21 over 20, looks like it's pretty even.
It's nice to know that. Leslie, I appreciate your graphs and your due diligence to bring us this information every month. I think it's exciting to see it. And on the other hand, we're not getting rain. It's not exciting to see it, but at least it gives us a full picture of what we're doing out there. Thank you.
Absolutely happy to do it.
Any other comments on discussion item A?
We actually do have Leslie Hoy.
Okay.
Okay, Leslie, go ahead.
Okay, good morning. When it comes to the amount of water that's delivered to the recharge facility, and Leslie commented that it doesn't all make it underground, which was a question I had before it came to the meeting. Is there an estimate to what the percentage is that does get actually recharged?
Per our state reporting, the only losses we have to take is evaporation. So depending on how the evaporation equation has to be run for the calendar year, which is based on how full those basins are. So if they're 50% full, then we are noted as in a wet condition, and evaporation loss has to be applied. So I don't have a number for you today as to what it's going to look like by the end of the year, but typically we've seen, losses of about, 20 or so acre feet, on effluent side, and about the same on surface water if we've had, a common delivery of both, or, almost the same delivery of both supply types. If it's different, where we have a lot more effluent going in and less surface water, of course, your evaporation is going to have to be calculated to way heavier on the effluent side, if that's how the basins were operated. So to answer your question, based on state regulatory reporting, we have to say that whatever is lost to evaporation doesn't recharge, and everything else is assumed to have recharged.
That answer your question, Leslie?
Not exactly, but when the water is delivered to the facility, this figure, does the water that the effluent and then goes out to the golf courses, is that in this figure, or how does that work?
That is not. So any direct deliveries are not part of it doesn't pass through the recharge facility.
Okay, so that
might get complicated. So there's a direct delivery feed, and so we can send supplies directly to those customers. And then if we so choose, once we recharge supplies, we could recover them and send them out to the golf course if needed. So we have to run two different pathways on our effluent side.
So, Leslie, I have a question for you. With evaporation, you mentioned 20 acre feet of surface water going to recharge that would be lost, and 20 acre feet of effluent. Now, is that per year?
Yes.
Okay. So here we are recharging 15 acre feet per day of surface water right now. So it kind of puts things in perspective.
Right. We don't take huge losses, but we do account for them if you want, what the final answer might look like. So there's not any surprises. Yeah, there's Evap loss. And it really depends on how it's operated. If we're operating heavily in the summer months, of course, we're going to have higher evaporation rates. If we're able to push that recharge more into those cooler months, while staying within our window, ending in November. That's a management decision. If you can do that. It just depends on what your year is looking like, and nobody has a crystal ball when they start in January as to what, other than what you might know on your snowpack side.
But in relationship to 15 acre feet per day, 20 acre feet from surface and 20 acre feet from effluent is pretty small.
It's nominal. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anybody else with a question?
No, Chairman.
Okay. Is all you have, Leslie, on that item?
That's all I have. I'm ready to move when everybody else is.
Let's go to item B, which is infrastructure topic, which is static water level measurements at the city's production wells.
Okay, so this is an item you have seen before, but it's been quite a few months, so we'll spend just a little more time on it. So you saw it in March and had your introductory presentation on it. Your request was to bring it back in 6 months, so we're right on time with September. Since the last subcommittee meeting, Airport 5 did come online, so we've added that to the chart and the water levels from that production well. So recall that we're looking at static water levels, and they're taken once a pump is halted for 8 hours or more. This allows the local water level, the table, to kind of rebound and settle out a little bit, so it becomes static again as best you can have that happen. So every year the city does collect monthly information on static water levels in their production wells, and then that rolls once again into the annual report. So both items that you saw today are part of the backbone of data that supports the annual reporting. So moving down. So this chart should be familiar, although it's been a little while. What has changed since last time is basically this little sliver right through here. This is your newer data. Everything else you've seen before. So we added the time frame since you last saw it. And then we also had the request to add trend lines. So trend lines were added to all wells except for Chino Valley 1. And because we are lacking data through this time period here, it skews the trend line. So we made a footnote so you'd be aware that it was not added at that time. If we cut this chart from here back to here, we could run a trend line and it would be representative of the data set. But once we start falling out of having data here, you're going to have problems. And then we move down. This was, I apologize, should have backed up and done this a little slower. As you said, I fall asleep thinking about these things, Chairman Blair. Water, water, water everywhere. So this was the Chino group. And we can look at that a little closer if you'd like to. And then this is the airport group. So on this chart, what's changed is we added in the airport information here. It's in gray, so it's not very easy to see. We'll change that color in the future. And then basically this bandwidth right here is your new data. Everything else you've seen. And we've also added the trend lines. Once again, except for Airport 5, we're just getting started there, so I think we can see the trend fairly easily there that we need a little more time with that one.
Leslie, so it's not real easy to see, but this is from 2007 on.
Yes, sir.
And I think what people think is, oh my gosh, there's a drought, so these well levels must be falling by hundreds of feet. And in actuality, looking up here, it's 5s and 10s of feet that they're dropping, not hundreds of feet.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to.
Sorry, I'm just like, Yeah, I guess maybe public perception is challenging because when fear starts coming into play of what's happening out there and not being able to see underground, assumptions can be made. But you look back at your data and you see you have a downward trend, which it's expected if you're pumping in one location and you're waiting for the water body to recharge or you're taking water out of storage, you're going to see a change in storage. You're going to see a change in water levels. When things are shut off, sometimes you see some incredible rebound, but it depends on the geology that you're in. So I think your point is well taken. And yeah, we do see declines. Declines happen in well fields. and you're balancing against what makes it back into the ground or what was originally in storage that you're working from.
I always ask the crazy questions, and I know you probably won't have the answer. I've talked to Craig about it. With a event like that we've had this year, my house, I've had over 15 inches of rain. So when you start talking out in our drainage area, how long does it take for us to see an increase, if any, in our well fields in Chino?
It really depends on, once again, the geology and what's overlying that material, how the well's constructed. You can see I think some rebound, but it's not, like, wow, we just filled that all right back up after that rainstorm. We operate in a desert environment. So I don't think you ask the difficult questions. I think they're just, there's details to them that you need to spend time on. And sometimes I understand this group, we don't have a lot of time to walk into this, but, once you have that rainstorm, we're on a high gradient area. So we have stuff blasting off the mountains and it's moving on out.
Yeah.
We have vegetation that's been dry for quite a while in banks. So the banks and the landscape are taking up what they can. But gravity works and it moves it out. And so when it has that chance to slow down and infiltrate, that's when you start seeing that recharge happen. But, you're going to have to work a while, because just because it came up at the upper level of your soil column doesn't mean that it just dropped right in.
Right.
Bumped it up. So
like Sullivan Lake overflowing 4 times, and that's water moving in and moving out, and
moving
it doesn't
fast.
necessarily get down there. But I find it interesting every place you move and look at well depths. Mint Creek Wash is a good example, and I'll just share it with a gentleman told me that runs those well fields for Talking Rock, Inscription Canyon, Whispering Canyon. They have 5 wells, and he said since July 1st that their static level has gone up 30 feet. Which I know we're not in that well field area,
right,
but it is still nice to know that in Mint Creek, when you can see water 2 miles upstream running in the creek, and then you go down 2 miles and it goes away, and it's going into the underground, who knows where, because I couldn't look under the sand. Mm-hmm. But it is nice to know that we've had a wet year and it has helped. So that's my point.
So your common point would be a well near Granite Creek.
Right.
So we've showed in the past where, depending on where you're looking at your water levels, if you're closer to the creek and you're perforated in that well a certain way, you're going to see that response a lot quicker. And so I think that's your comparable to the Mint Creek area. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Any comments? Bill?
Leslie, looking at CV3, that seems to have the most dramatic decline of any of the CV wells. And can you comment on that?
I'll see if I can.
I mean, if you go back to 2007, it looks like it was right around maybe 195, and now it's down to probably
about 220.
220?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, 220. I don't think I have a good explanation right off the top of my head on why that is. It's not typically one of the ones that is the workhorse, I don't think, unless Craig thinks it's one of the workhorses of the production field. It could be geology. It could be how it was constructed. These are, this well field, the wells are very old. So we might have a how it was built element there. But if you give me some time, we can look into that and see why it might respond a little bit differently. Did you have something? Yeah, all of them have surrounding influence. So Craig just said there's surrounding influences. So if 2 wells, let's move to a picture.
And
okay,
CV1
so here's one,
is no
2.
longer operating and hasn't been for a long time.
CV1 has not been operating. Limited, probably.
Is it going to operate, or is it out total?
I would leave that to the Public Works Director if he wants to address how that well is behaving. But we'll get back to a map, so
Yeah.
This is 1.
So Chino Valley 1, as we label it, has not been used extensively. It is usable. We do keep it fresh. We keep all the testing up and everything, but it is one of them that's higher in arsenic. So by using the blending plan, it would be our last used for that because we want to deliver the highest quality water we can. So by the blending plan, then it's the last that we would pump from. And so right in the center of that picture then also is where well number 3 is, the CV3. If you look at the little gray kind of building impressions right there around it and below it, those may be a lot of greenhouses.
That was for emphasis.
Yeah.
Greenhouses.
Emphasize greenhouses.
Greenhouses.
Yes.
Do.
Marijuana grows right there.
So there can be other demands right in that same vicinity as our well that then you get influence on each well. You
It's
get the
almost like a
cone
zone
of depression.
depression.
Yeah. Then you get the cone of depression overlapping from more than one well at that area.
Well, and that's an interesting comment to make because I think that what people have to understand is when their wells start dropping or going dry, they have to consider what's moved in around them. You know, I think that, you know, if you had one house in Chino Valley and you were the only house in, you know, within a mile of anybody else, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by homes, it's situation that's just natural.
And along those lines, then you go to the dot that's farthest to the right on the map or farthest east. That is well number 5. And then all of the development around there is either fed by City of Prescott water or Town of Chino Valley water. So then there are very limited private wells in that area.
Yeah, it's almost like squeezing a balloon and things prove one location and then they degrade in another. But obviously when we're measuring our well field, we have long expectations of a substantial amount of water being able to be pumped and delivered. But when you look at the periphery of the aquifer, those wells that are on those edges, if they lose a few feet, they lose production in that well because it's not like a big bathtub. It's more like a bird bath where you have these real shallow areas above bedrock. And if they drop 10 or 15 feet and you try to drill deeper, you're just hitting bedrock and it's not improving. So we know that we have over 500 wells that are on the periphery of the aquifer that have degraded so badly they're importing water and storing it. And where are they getting that water from? Our water delivery.
Our
here.
water tank.
Yeah. So in essence, they're taking water from the center of the well field because it gets delivered to us. They fill up here, then they go out and deliver it to homes that are no longer producing
and paying very
so
little.
We have
for
to
it.
look at a kind of a broader impact of what happens in the aquifer and where the water table is, and be able to try to have a better understanding of how not only ourselves but our neighbors can utilize their water a little more efficiently, so in essence will last 100 years.
I wonder what would happen if the city said we're no longer going to allow water outside the city limits and shut off that water facility that we have. Would that force the county into having to put one in? I mean, out of curiosity.
Well, it would probably force the state legislature to probably deal with some of these exempt wells with some type of a policy rather than just have the county throw their hands up and say, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. I have a question, Craig. Would you mind answering it? You may not be able to, but are we still at all doing anything with the Dugan and the Weber wells out in Paulden? Or do we manage those? Do we check the water levels in those?
So first I'll say that no, we are not utilizing them. They are just a well that's there on the property, and then Leslie can talk towards whether they're monitored and such.
Yeah, so those were wells at one time the city considered for their water supplies, additional water supplies to bring into this area. So they're in the Big Chino subbasin, and both of those are equipped with either USGS monitoring equipment or Arizona Department of Water Resources monitoring equipment.
And a question I would have to that, and I'd like to know an answer, because Paulden now has 3,000 exempt wells out there. How have those wells in Paulden affected those two Dugan and Weber wells as far as water height?
We would have to bring in the hydrographs. I don't have those off the top of my head.
Okay. I mean, it's just curious because when we're talking about,
That'd be interesting.
we're talking about regional water here.
Right.
Right.
And now you have 3,000 wells out in Paulden, and we have 2 production wells that the city owns in Paulden. I'd like to know how those levels have changed over the past 30 to 40 years. Of course, that metering equipment's only been out there how long?
Well, I think there's been tape downs done for several decades.
Okay.
So we would have that, and then
Yeah, that'd be.
the real time is different.
I don't think we need
So,
several
I think you have to
decades.
remember, though, that the push of the
Yeah, 10 years,
groundwater
we'd probably be able
is
to
going right
really
past
see
those
how
wells
that
to the
is
Verde.
changing.
Can
there
you
was
get
a reason why those weren't ultimately selected for production wells.
Right, because they're at the headwater of the Verde.
they're close to, yeah.
But again, it goes back to my question, and regionally, when Paulden has that many wells and the state's not doing anything about recapturing anything,
Right.
and we want to talk about us harming the Verde, I would say in a very mild manner that those 3,000 exempt wells at the headwater of the Verde is affecting the Verde. But I would like to see, if it's not too much trouble, maybe a 10-year trend of what's happened out there.
Easily.
Okay.
It's all available online. So we just pull up either USGS's website or ADWR's
Okay.
and plug in the right identifier.
Would you do that?
Absolutely. We
meeting?
can do that.
All right,
But
thank
you
you.
have to remember that
do
also that, that's why we're engaged in comprehensive agreement number 1.
Okay.
It's not typically the exempt well owner that takes the brunt of it. That's part of being exempt, and they're outside of an active management area. So
Yeah, and I don't think
It's
a lot
tricky.
of people know that Paulden is outside our active management area, so they
yeah.
can pretty much sink a well and pump until the cows come home, so to speak. I mean, they could have a dairy out there pumping tons of water, and there's no regulation to it.
And if 86% or 85% of the flow of the Verde River comes out of the Big Chino Aquifer,
Yeah.
and they're drawing it down,
Mm-hmm.
then we're in trouble when SRP is saying we can't allow the degradation of the Verde River.
Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to regional, and when the county's saying we have no draw in the water, but they do have a draw in improving all these plats that are pumping water out of all these wells. So, I mean, I'm going to carry on, but all right, we're done with that one.
That's all right. I did a little figuring, and a 35-gallon a minute well, pumped 24/7, 365 would be 56 acre feet, and that's one well.
It's a pretty known quantity. That's what's put into all the modeling at the state regarding exempt wells. So, 56 acre feet is
That's
what it looks
crazy.
like.
Okay, where were we at since I sidetracked you? Are we done with that item?
Yes, sir. You're on 5C.
Okay, we're going to go to discussion item C, overview of conservation incentive program for fiscal year 2021. So let's do that.
Good morning again. I'm here to talk about our septic system mail out and the change to the revision to Prescott City Code 310.8, and also some water audits that were conducted. So I'd like to start with the water audit. Over the Christmas and New Year's Eve break, I was accompanied by a very helpful fellow named John, who took me around to the schools. And I went to all the different, I'll tell you how many different schools I went to. I went to Prescott High School, the Discovery Garden Preschool, and the administration building that's next to it. Taylor Hicks, Lincoln Elementary, Abaya Judd, Mile High Middle School, and Granite Mountain. And for each one of those schools, I tested the sinks and the toilets and the urinals, and made recommendations on each one of those schools in a separate spreadsheet. And those were delivered to Chris Moody, who's the facilities manager. And I have heard that as of March, they had completed everything they needed to do at Prescott High School. And I got another email about a month later that the other schools, which are newer and didn't have nearly as many issues, those have been done also. The recommendations have been made. I provided aerators and low-flow shower heads, and also made recommendations about some washing machines that are looking pretty old that might be time to change out with a high-efficiency washing machine. So I'd like to show you the dashboard. This is for fiscal year 2021, which ended on June 30th. We allocate $40,000 a year to the program, but we don't ever stop putting more money in if the rebate applications come in, and they have. So we actually provided $47,000 in rebates this past fiscal year. This was based on 187 applications, and we've saved 2,162,231 gallons of water this fiscal year. And those are based on estimates, but we feel that's a pretty close amount.
How many acre feet, Steve?
About 6 acres. Yeah. That's about right.
I wanted to show you the data for the last 10 years. So beginning in 2012 until 2021. Now this is by calendar year. So this information is current through late June. And so we've got more applications that will come in by December 31. So the 2021 number will go up. But you can see that we had a couple of really good years in 2012, 2013. But in 2020 and 2021, there's been a nice jump in the numbers. And I think there are two reasons for that. Right after Labor Day, I sent over 3,000 postcards to homeowners who were on septic systems. And they were staggered, so we didn't send them all out the first week. We didn't want to overwhelm the utility billing staff. But you can see from these totals that the low-flow toilets, starting in October, there was a big jump in the number of toilets. And so between September and June, we've had 49 septic system customers purchased 33 low-flow toilets. We've also had 62 high-efficiency washing machines purchased. 27 of those were purchased by septic system customers. We've had 10 turf replacements, and that's really where you get the biggest bang for your buck in water savings. And we've also had 16 water harvesting projects and 18 WaterSense labeled smart controllers were purchased in this last fiscal year.
Pretty good numbers.
So I wanted to talk a little bit also about the change to the city council approved change to allow 1.28 single flush toilets. Retroactively, I sent 28 letters, I think that's the figure there, to homeowners who had been previously denied the 1.28 single flush toilet. So these numbers are in addition to that. So this does not include those 28 customers. So if we look at April, May, and June, which is the first month that things really changed with the change to the rebate conservation code, we had 12 customers purchase 18 of the $75 toilets. And in June, 10 customers purchased 15 for a total of 33 toilets purchased by 22 customers. And 8 of those were by septic system customers. Oh, and that's shouldn't. I don't know what happened there.
Septic tank customers in the city of Prescott, correct?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it looks like I doubled up on this by accident. So, are there any questions about the rebate program?
I think it's wonderful. Carry on. That's what.
And I think it just goes to show you that when we publicize and let the public know that these rebates are available, that they respond. And we need to continue that effort. I think there's probably a good justification for increasing our budget allocation for rebates, and let people consistently know they're available and how valuable they are in reducing water usage. I think it's pretty clear.
That it is. Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chairman Blair, we have Howard Mechanic.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Howard.
Okay, first, Mr. Chairman, I had my hand up on the previous agenda item, so I wonder if I could comment about that also. Regarding Mr. Shiska's point about some people think the wells have been going down hundreds of feet. I think the public doesn't understand what is an acceptable drop in our groundwater. Actually, I don't understand it either. What is acceptable for the AMA? Do we want to stop our overdraft? If not, what is acceptable? I think in addressing Mr. Mayor-elect, I think you've indicated you wanted to discuss the regional water issue with the other jurisdictions, and I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Do they want to reduce the overdraft, or do they want to eliminate the overdraft? If so, when? This has been talked about for decades. There's various representatives of various jurisdictions who have promised that we'll reach safe yield. We've had every month you have a presentation at your meeting talking about how much we're overdrafting in the city of Prescott based on how much we're recharging. This is interesting information. The question is, what are we going to do with that information? Is it acceptable what Prescott is doing as far as how much water we're using versus how much we're recharging? And looking at it every month is not very illuminate. It doesn't illuminate too much, because if you have a wet month, it looks good. Then you have dry months for 6 months. So that's my point. What overdraft is acceptable for the AMA? I think the public doesn't understand that, and we need to address it. Now, as far as the conservation issue, and some of you know that I served on the Water Conservation Committee when it existed about 10 years ago. And one thing we addressed was how long do we want to have this program, and how often does it need to be reviewed on a detailed basis? And one issue that came up is, are we giving rebates to people who have no choice in when they replace their, let's say, washing machine? There are people out there who maybe don't replace their washing machine, even though they know there's a rebate. The only time they'll replace their washing machine is when it breaks. And then they have to buy a new washing machine, and the rebate is not an incentive. It's basically a loss to the city, because those people would have to buy that washing machine. I think it needs to be reviewed. It's been going on for 10 years. I certainly think more people can be reached with this program, but I think that we can maybe target people who buy a house that's, say, over 10 or 15 years old, because anything newer doesn't really need to be addressed. But anybody who buys a new house, I think the city can maybe mail a postcard to the new owner saying, do you know there's this program? And you have a certain amount of time to take advantage of this program. If you don't want to replace your washer, don't wait till it breaks in 5 years and then expect to get a rebate. That's my suggestion, that it needs to be looked at in terms of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Anybody else, Jennifer?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Gwen, we're only offering these to high efficiency models, correct?
That's correct, Councilman. There is a list of washing machines on the website. There's a link to the list of WaterSense machines that we offer the incentive for. It's not just any machine on the market.
Mr. Mechanic's comments, if someone has an old machine that breaks down and they just decide to buy a low-cost replacement that's not high efficiency, they wouldn't be eligible for this rebate.
That's correct.
So we're trying to incentivize that they buy maybe a more expensive but a more higher efficiency model.
That's correct.
And that's what the intention of the rebate is for.
Well, can I just say that it's regarding the toilets? I don't think people have a choice on toilets. Maybe they have a choice. I haven't investigated what the stores have for washing machines, but I think on toilets, the only toilets available are low flow toilets. I could be corrected, but that's my belief, is that's the only ones that are available.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mechanic talked about working together with other communities. I have to say that it's not easy, but it's definitely doable for staff to work with other community staff. And they've been doing that, Craig, I would imagine, for a long time. Okay? It's different when you're dealing with political entities. When politics comes into the situation, all bets are off. I noticed that the county doesn't want to touch water with a 10-foot pole. And if you look at Prescott Valley, as I remember, my younger brother, who got bigger than I was, or than I am, didn't like me telling him what to do. So I think that it's a whole lot easier to deal with things and work together on a staff level than it is on a political level. So that's just my comment on that situation.
Okay. All right, so I think we covered that fairly well. So we'll go to the last item on the agenda, is item number D, and that's regarding possible amendment to City Code 2-1-9. And you're going to do this one, Gwen?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay. Go right ahead.
So, in July, at the July 27th council meeting, we had brought several water service requests before the council, and at that time, council asked the staff to look into amending city code to add a provision for submetering on projects that use master meters for multifamily developments and different types of multifamily development. At that time, we were bringing forward a new kind of multifamily rental product, a single family detached or sometimes attached rental product, which seems to be something new that's coming onto the market. So we wanted to address that also. So we did some research. Dana Walsh, Assistant City Attorney, and myself did some research. And the first thing that we found was some provisions under Arizona revised statutes. And those statutes allow a landlord to charge separately for gas, water, wastewater, solid waste removal, or electricity by installing submetering systems or by allocating the charges separately through a process called ratio utility billing system. So it's not uncommon for particularly electricity to be submetered on a multifamily development. That's actually more common than, for instance, water submetering, although you can see here that water and wastewater are also included in the list under the Arizona revised statute. The ratio utility billing system is a formula that divides the bill among the tenants based on certain criteria. Things like everyone who rents a 2-bedroom unit, or based on the number of tenants within that unit. Those are, or square footage of a unit. Those are just some examples, although as long as it's considered to be fair and equitable, a landlord can use any methodology to divide the utility billing that's shared through a master meter and sub-metered. We also looked at other communities in Arizona. I can tell you that it was somewhat difficult to find other communities in Arizona that use sub-metering specifically, although I did find several that highly encourage it under their water conservation codes. There was one exception in the city of Sierra Vista. Sierra Vista does require what they call independent unit metering, but they also provide exceptions to this rule if the RUB method, or the ratio utility billing system, is used, or if the project is for low-income tenants, they will provide an exception to the sub-metering of water meters behind the master meter. We did find, or I found, that some other communities such as Phoenix, Avondale, Peoria, and Mesa, they do require separate meters for things like irrigation, clubhouses, pools, things of that effect, which can help, but they do not require sub-metering for the individual units. We did locate 2 other larger communities, Portland, Oregon, and San Diego, California. Those communities are quite a bit larger than the city of Prescott. However, it gave us some good guidance for the drafting of a change to city code. So there are a couple of changes to the code that we are recommending. The first one is an amendment to City Code 2-1-9 for abbreviations and definitions, because we felt it was important to define what some of these things are. So we added the definition of a master meter and also one for a private water meter. We also included a change to the definition of consumer, and I'll show you that here in just a minute, why that's important. The second proposed amendment is to 2-1-24, Utilities Division water meters, which clarifies when a master meter can and cannot be used, and the guidelines for the installation of that meter. So I'd like to just show you here. Under 2-1-9, there's a definition of consumer. I believe this definition was primarily written to assist in the classification of different types of uses for utility billing purposes, whether they were considered residential or non-residential type uses. But I believe it can serve us in this purpose as well. Under the definition of multifamily consumer right here, I'll just read it. Any permanent housing unit that has one or more common wall with another housing unit located in a multifamily residential structure that's served by a common master meter, including a unit in a duplex, triplex, fourplex, condominium development, or townhouse development. It also includes mobile homes located in a mobile home park. Here's where I've added language: single-family rental unit developments, and any other residential development that shares a common master meter. So that would be the first definition that we would recommend be slightly amended to accommodate this change. The second definition is new. It would be the definition of a master meter, which is a meter that serves the water usage of multifamily consumer developments from the same meter. This meter is the responsibility of the landlord or owner, who then receives the bill as measured through one water meter. The second new definition is for a private water meter, defined as a sub-meter or flow monitoring device owned by a party other than the city, placed behind a master meter to measure water consumption of each individual dwelling unit within a multifamily consumer development in order to monitor water consumption. A private water meter is not owned, used, or maintained by the city for billing purposes, nor subject to development impact fees. I think it's important that we denote that it's not subject to development impact fees. So 2-1-24 City Code is Utilities Division water meter. And a portion of this exists already today, but we've changed it quite a bit. So I'm going to read you what we are proposing in terms of water meters. All water furnished or sold by the city shall be delivered or supplied through meter only, and every separate building supplied with city water must have its own separate service connection and master meter or meters, except that 2 or more buildings located on the same lot, on contiguous or continuous lots under the same ownership, property or block covering more than one lot, may, upon written permission granted by the Public Works Director, be supplied through the same connection and master meter as long as the single ownership continues. Upon change from single ownership, a new and separate connection and water meter shall be immediately made for each building or premises. No person having a water service connection shall otherwise furnish or deliver water to any other water user, whether gratuitously or for a charge. The installation of a private water meter is required for each individual dwelling unit sharing a common master meter for monitoring of individual water usage and to encourage water conservation in multifamily consumer residential development. However, a private water meter is not required for an apartment building with one common plumbing system. So I think the major takeaways from this code change are that we've integrated the master meter definition. We've clarified that if lots are contiguous or continuous under the same ownership, they can still be master metered. And we've added this language here at the bottom is all new for the installation of a private water meter. At this time, I'm open to questions or comments regarding the proposed changes.
Well, thank you for your work on this. I think it does address our primary concerns, because I think as we see this new type of hybrid development concept come forward, it's a way of avoiding the cost of having an individual meter that costs $8,000 a piece. And we've seen this in a couple of proposed projects, a couple more that I think are soon to be submitted. And it's a way of avoiding that cost when you're, in essence, developing almost a planned area development with multiple buildings, but not having to pay that metering cost, claiming that it's a rental complex, and then not really having any control or incentive on how those individual buildings and the users and the occupants of those buildings manage their water use. Now, it's pretty common that when they're originally built, they're going to be pretty efficient, but at some point you're going to have broken meters, broken lines, cracked lines going into those separate buildings, and a master meter would not be able to tell where it was happening. They would just get one major bill. But if they had that sub-metering apparatus, then the owner manager would know where the loss was and be able to address it in a pretty prompt manner. And also, if the individual renter was not paying attention or just wasting water, they would get a significant bill for that. And that would incentivize them to use that water appropriately. And I think that's what's necessary with this type of a hybrid situation. So I think the proposal here covers most of the concerns. I would like it to be made available for public comment for a period of time, because we're not the sole source of all wisdom. And I think at some point, some people will be able to say, well, what if this happened? And I think those types of what ifs, if they're brought forward, could be modified into a final ordinance. But I think from my perspective, I think this covers it pretty well.
Thank you.
I agree. Steve?
So Gwen, the master meter would be the only thing, and the infrastructure leading up to the master meter would be the only thing the city was responsible for.
That is correct. The city maintenance would end at the master meter.
Okay.
Anything behind it would be the response. It would all be private, hence the term. We decided not to use the word submetering, but rather private water meter, because we have other definitions that imply what is private and what is public as well. But yes, only up to the water meter itself.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's
And then
good.
it also covers the eventuality if someone tried to convert a rental complex into individual ownership.
It would
That
be
way they
relatively
would have
simple.
to immediately get their own meter
Yes,
and pay the correct fee.
that's correct. And that language is here in the first paragraph as well.
Thank you, Gwen.
Welcome.
Any Jennifer? Anybody with their hand up?
Yes, I have two. We'll start with Leslie Hoy. Go ahead, Leslie.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. First, I want to comment on something Councilman Stishka said a couple times during the meeting about the county not considering water when approving subdivisions. The county is now discussing whether they're going to start considering water adequacy. I believe in their next planning or one of their upcoming planning and zoning meetings, they're going to be discussing this, and then we'll probably be going to the board. So I hope that it requires a unanimous vote on the part of the supervisors per state law. So I hope that everybody will be contacting their supervisors and encouraging them to vote to be able to consider water adequacy. That could really make a big difference in our active management area and in the county. When it comes to this, it's not perfect, but I do support what's trying to be done here and appreciate the work that's been done on this. I have just a couple of points. In the under the abbreviations and definitions, there seemed to me to be a conflict between number one, where it says an apartment consumer is a non-residential consumer. And then down in the new number, I guess it's not the new number 5, it says that any permanent housing unit located within the service area used as a residence, including but not limited to mobile home parks, apartment houses, etc. That seems to me to be a conflict, but maybe I'm not reading it correctly.
So I think those are good comments, Leslie. In the beginning, I had made the comment that I believed that this definition was used more for billing classification purposes. And in those purposes, under those purposes, a mobile home park or an apartment house is considered residential. But I think you're right, there may be a conflict between the apartment consumer, because it says it's a non-residential consumer. We didn't actually propose to change a definition 1 or 5, but we'll take a look at that and see if we can clean that up as part of this amendment.
Okay, good, thanks. And then my other comment, Phil may have said this, but it's really been hard to hear, that if these homes in the future were sold as individual homes in these rental units, the rental subdivisions, would the private meters that are being installed be capable of becoming a master meter under that definition, or just a meter that like an ordinary house would have, which would be a billing account? Or are they the same kind of meters like I would have on my house?
So I believe it depends on the kind of meter that they install, and we've only recently received a submittal for one type of meter up in the Granite Dells development that said they would install sub-meters, and we're reviewing that information now to see if it will meet our criteria. But I believe it will also depend on how far into the future such a change might occur and what technology that the city is using and is out in the community at that time. So I don't think it's a straightforward answer. It's possible, but not necessarily the case.
Well, I think it's something to think about, because it seems to me that some of these rental subdivisions that are private family homes could in the future end up being single homes that are placed for sale, since I have suspicions about this whole rental subdivision thing as it is. So if it were possible in the future to use those meters as direct billing meters, that would be good. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on Leslie's comment. Leslie, I hope that what you're saying about the county and water comes true. The biggest problem that I've seen in the past is that the county is a policy arm of the state. And so, yes, as much as they've liked to do it, they've always been kind of in the end, bottom line is they've always kind of said, well, we'd like to do it, but we can't do it because of something that the state won't allow. So I hope that what you said is correct. I hope that they do come up with some water policy on the county level.
Well, they are discussing it now. And if they were to vote unanimously to be able to consider water adequacy, they could. And I believe only a couple other places in the state have done that, but it's permissible by law. So I guess if enough other officials and citizens stepped up to support that, maybe that could happen.
Thank you, Leslie.
You
have somebody else in there.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mechanic.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple points. I do support this proposal, but one thing I'd like to see would be a justification for it. I know water is not always just an economic issue, but there may be a developer or two who comes in and looks at this and says, wait a minute, you're causing me thousands of dollars of extra expense, and what's the point? Well, you could say the point is to conserve water. Well, then how much water does it conserve? Well, there have been studies done that have shown it's 20 to 40%. Okay, how much are we asking them to pay to save an acre foot compared to how much we're paying for other water conservation measures? Because that's what this is. This is a water conservation measure. And we have some water conservation measures are very expensive for the acre foot that you obtain, and some are not very expensive. How does this appear in that framework? If we're going to present it to the public for comment, I think this information is extremely important to consider. And the other point, and I appreciate Mr. Good's comment about putting it out to the public. And I know recently there have been items put on the agenda for council that are voted on the same day, and I hope that's not going to happen here. I think it should be presented for a study session and have public comment, and wait at least a couple weeks before there's any kind of vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
So I think I can speak to that. This item is scheduled for work study on September 28th, and then for vote on October 12th.
Okay.
And I will place it on the public notice section of the website.
Thank you, Gwen. Very good. Does that cover it?
That's all I have, unless you have other questions.
I don't, but I do have a section here that says staff's announcements, and I'm sure you have something you would like to share with us.
I'm going to let Leslie take the lead on that.
Okay, just a quick wrap up for today. We always seem to have lots of topics in water, and we felt this potentially helps cover things that may not need to be on. Wow, that's an interesting setup there. Well, we'll see if it'll work. Okay, so general staff announcements. There was a Groundwater Users Advisory Council meeting on August 18th. The link is here on this document that's available. It can be shipped to you by Gwen or by the clerk, however we want to do this. We'll see if it works real quick. Control click. Okay. So after these meetings, they house the information online. So you're able to access this. That was August 21. A lot of topics were covered that day. It was a very large PowerPoint. Here's the presentation itself and the agenda. I'm just going to read off a couple things from the agenda. One of the items was the groundwater monitoring. So we had a comprehensive, this is the PowerPoint itself, but we won't go through it today, comprehensive look at the monitoring that's happening in the AMA and also out into the Big Chino area, which might answer your Dugan well question, actually. And what they're looking to do, again, is they go every 5 years and try to hit every well they possibly can, because that helps them produce water level maps and changes. So we're going to see them back out in our area in spring of 22. So that was a long story short of that. I'm going to blow through this until I get to the one that Councilman Blair, I think you were interested in, and maybe the rest of the group. So this is the active management area boundary. So we're down in Prescott down here. This is the Big Chino area. This is the Verde River for orientation. The Dugan well you'd asked about, sir. This is the hydrograph. So we'll bring back a little bit more. They also have a nested piezometer situation out there as well. So you can see what they were able to provide us at this last meeting. So moving on, I'll just close that down so you know where to find that. They also spoke about, and we had to make a decision on a groundwater withdrawal fee for the coming year, and it stayed at $2 per acre foot. So when you see the annual report come back in and we figure out how much we've actually pumped, there's an assessment per acre foot, and it'll remain at $2. Moving down their agenda, they talked about the governor's group. So you'll see that within the PowerPoint that I just showed you. And they also discussed the management plan. So we're currently working under the 4th management plan. They are preparing the 5th management plan. Drafts of that are going to be ready in early 22. And so that will come back to this Groundwater Users Advisory Council to make recommendations, comments. Generally what that group does is we look at how to tailor it to meet the needs in this AMA, because we don't necessarily have the same geology, economics, things of that nature in our area. Say we don't have big intels, we don't have huge water users like that. So some of the things they need in active management plans or active management area management plans in other AMAs we don't necessarily need here, but maybe we need other tools. So I want to walk back to number 2 now. Your general announcement here is that there was a question, and this is terribly tiny. I wish I knew how we could make this. You think bottom right? You want me to magnify it? Nope. That one? That one? Can we almost see? Thank you, sir. So Member Good had a question, said this number looks off. So this data set is, it's jumping over from another long time Excel database that we've kept on all annual reporting. There was a request to do it in a new way, looking at things a little bit differently, pulling the numbers apart a different way. So this number was actually correct. However, what was happening in this data set is that this data set is pulling apart Chino versus airport. So this number is what led to that wondering about this number. This one is actually smaller. And we went back through and checked the data set the rest of the way. I also thought it was helpful to pull that total pumping back over here as a cross check. So, you know, I do apologize. We were asked to do something, another data set in another way. Our long-term, standing annual reporting spreadsheets that we use to compile our numbers is now being looked at a little bit differently. So hope that answers the question. So we have that available for you if you'd like to look at it. And then last, I'll jump back up here. This water management certificate program, I have the pleasure of being able to join that this year. It's a program that runs for 8 months. It's it's on a Friday and then half a day Friday, all day on Saturdays. And what it provides for us, this is typically a program when we had a senior and a junior set up, a laddering program here to train up the next person. This was something that I would encourage that person to do, but I have the pleasure of doing that this time. And what it's going to provide for us is that it, even though I talk to a lot of my colleagues across the state and in the Groundwater Usury Advisory Councils and our NAMWAs and all those kind of things, this provides me contact time with some other people to look at management, legal and regulatory compliance, and technology and history. And then we can see what comes back that might help you determine what your long-term goals are related to water management, what kind of policies or codes you might want to look at when we can see what's happening across the state a little bit more. So if we look at management, that could be, water supply and pricing. So we'll have a discussion about that in this program. When we look at legal and regulatory, it's going to look at an introduction to water law as well as contractual agreements. So those are actually pretty familiar to me since I've been in this profession for quite a long time. But laws change, and of course interpretation. It comes down a lot of times to how things are interpreted. Under the technology and history, that section has a use and management of reclaimed water supplies. So once again, into the future, you might want to assess how you plan your reclaim supplies. There at one time, the city had a policy on how they would use their effluent. We don't have one of those right now. Further looking at this is a water and the energy nexus. It's talked about all the time, but tightening down some of those things where you have a connection and looking at where that stands now is really important. So the faculty for this are pretty impressive. And once again, I appreciate the ability to spend half a day on Friday, maybe in Phoenix, maybe not. Everything's going virtual, of course, and then a full day on Saturday to see if we can bring back some new ideas for you. And that's all I have on this topic, and that kind of closes out general announcements.
You want to share the meeting today at 1 o'clock? The worm meeting that we're having?
I'm not in that one.
You're not? Talk about the meeting today at 1.
I
The
can.
presentation on the worm, is that open to the public?
It's not.
Oh, okay. All right. And I will just let you know that Mr. Holmes emailed me and said that he will be here in attendance. Okay. Okay. Then that wasn't public. Anything else, Mr. Good or Mr. Steve? I can't say his name right, so I have to say Mr. Steve. Thank you, staff. Appreciate it. Jennifer, thank you. Thank you. And everybody, we'll see you next month. Meeting is adjourned.